We really like the evidence-based approach that Coles have taken in terms of their audits and actually the peer-reviewed evidence-based science, which is the model, the philosophy that we use in our farming systems. And we're interested in this space. It's very topical. It's great to have a seat at the table and be at the forefront of some of these discussions. Andrew Farrington. I've been here for 16 years and Sirri has been here her whole life. Sirri's parents, John and Liz, gave us an opportunity to come here and farm. We're very grateful for that. John has done a great job developing this property, planting trees, fencing off areas that are environmentally sensitive, and also he's done a really good job fencing the place into land class. Since we've taken over, we've moved out of the grapes and out of the sheep, and we're just focused on cattle breeding and also finishing.
I'm Maria Crawford. I work in the Coles Livestock team. Coles decided to go down the path of a carbon neutral brand. It fits well within the Coles strategy. We know that we've got a responsibility to reduce our environmental footprint, and we wanted to find a way where we can work with our suppliers and have something tangible for our customers as well. For us to have our carbon neutral brand, we've had to measure our scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions through the beef supply chain. It's not until we actually get all of the input information together and we work out what our carbon emissions are that we can then purchase the necessary offsets to make this product carbon neutral. So as part of that, it's about measuring from the supermarket's perspective all of those inputs that go towards production of the beef that comes from these guys. So it includes the processing, the transportation, what happens in the distribution centres. So all of the electricity use, so packaging, even to the point where we measure electricity use in the refrigeration for the area where the carbon neutral beef actually sits on the shelf. On the farm end, we then look at all of those inputs as well. So we look at electricity, fertiliser use, we look at herd efficiency, we look at production attributes, so fertility, we look at weight for age, we look at time of turn-off, weight gain, weaning weights. All of those things then come together on the farm. And then we're also very interested in what's happening with regards to sequestration on the farm with trees that are planted, the soil sequestration. We substantiate the claim of the carbon neutral brand really through the Climate Active accreditation. All of the data that's collected is assessed by Integrity Ag and Environment, and they put together our application that goes to Climate Active. It's also third-party audited, so it's audited at least twice along the chain. And once we get that Climate Active stamp, then the product is assessed to be carbon neutral. Onboarding the producers was probably not as big a challenge as I thought it was going to be. We actually went to the producers with an idea that they actually come on board and be part of the journey with us. It was important that we captured these producers that had the very best quality beef, because ultimately we needed a product that still met the very highest premium product on our shelf. So the carbon neutral brand is really a premium brand for Coles. First, we looked at MSA data for producers, and we knew that we had a great group of suppliers that could meet the requirements that we were looking for, so really high MSA scores. Onboarding was then working through that process with Integrity Ag to understand how a carbon footprint evolves, what kind of information is collected. We worked through that with the producers, and that was really the onboarding process then with Integrity Ag and Environment to make sure that they understood exactly what they were getting into, and then the annual requirements with regards to updating all of that information.
We decided to go on this journey with Coles with the carbon neutral brand because we'd been supplying Coles for 12 years. During that process, we'd built a lot of trust. We were just happy to give it a go. And We were adamant that we weren't prepared to compromise the productivity of our farm business or the profitability, but we were happy to proceed with the audits, and a lot of the data that we had to supply for the audits we already collate for our farm benchmarking, which measures our financial and production performance of our business. And we'd already been really striving to improve and optimise our MSA scores in the butcher shop cattle that we'd been doing for Coles. So it just seemed to be quite well aligned with what we were already doing. Steve Wiedemann from Integrity Ags, he put a lot of emphasis on fertility and weight for age being two of the focus areas to try to reduce your emissions per kilo of beef. Those are probably two things that we have put a lot of emphasis on just to improve profitability and productivity, but we've probably put a bit more emphasis on that, and the relationship with Coles has enabled us to probably invest more in supplementary feeding to maintain good daily weight gains throughout the animal's life, which leads to a high weight for age scenario, which is conducive with a lower carbon footprint. We have quite high fertility in our herd. We're not carrying those sort of inefficient breeders through that are emitting methane for a prolonged period. We've planted 4,000 trees. We've fenced off environmentally sensitive areas. We just do a lot of those things as part of our farming practices. We're not going to take productive farming land out of the system to plant trees on. We think there's enough environmentally sensitive areas where we can fence off and plant trees there. One thing we're really putting a lot of focus on is transitioning away from annual pastures to perennial pastures. And we're trying to do that anyway, but the beauty of these relationships is it does enable you to probably speed up the process and know that you're probably going to get recognition for that. So transitioning away from annual-based pastures to a perennial Phalaris-based pasture is a really high priority for us.
As far as our footprint year on year goes, our initial group of 10 producers, when we compared to the national average, looking at some of the data, we're 19% lower than the industry average. So that was a really good starting point for us. And we'll continue to build on that, recognising that they will fluctuate based on seasonal conditions, where our producers are, and the fact that we're actually building our group of suppliers into the brand. The overall goal is obviously to reduce emissions and to look at what we can be working with our suppliers on farm and how they can actually do that. Feed supplements is one of those. Looking at insetting trees is another one. So the methodology to actually include in the carbon footprint the carbon sequestered through planted trees is something that's coming and is looking really exciting. Well, ideally, Coles would love to have a supply chain where we could purchase beef from farmers that were carbon neutral, but I think we need to understand that that's a way off. Throughout our Coles supply chain, we also need to be looking at how we can be reducing our emissions overall.